Hey, everybody. Talking hoops once again with Michael McCleary of the Argus Leader and Jandy from Midco Sports. And it is officially March. Michael, here we go. We're going to talk about some important either punching your ticket to the SODAK 16 or punching your ticket to the state tournament in all six classes today.
Yeah, a lot of good games this week. Really excited.
Yeah, and we're going to do as we always do. We're going to truck through boys AA, boys A, boys B, girls AA, girls A, and girls B. And we'll start with boys AA, where Roosevelt polished off an undefeated season in AA. That just doesn't happen very often. And first of all, just a shout out to Roosevelt for a fantastic season. I know you've watched them this year too.
Yeah, Roosevelt's been really, really good this year. They've had the occasional, I guess, scare, if you want to call it, but even their scares are kind of 5 to 10 point wins. I mean, they've gone through their schedule pretty comfortably, which is, it's probably rare to see an undefeated team to begin with, but for them to have such an easy time with it, I guess, is even more incredible.
I did not see that coming into the season, that's for sure. Here's a look at the SODAK 16. This is going to happen on Saturday. We've got some good matchups. 1, 2, and 3 are all Sioux Falls teams, Roosevelt, O'Gorman, Washington. After that, Harrisburg earns the 4 seed. They invite Spearfish across the state. And then an interesting one at 5-12. Let's talk about that one. Mitchell takes on Stevens. They played each other just over a month ago. Stevens came into the Corn Palace and got it done. This could be an interesting one, Michael.
Yeah, and I think it was considered an upset at the time, and I think it would be an upset if it were to happen again too. Based on seating alone, obviously. But for a 5-12 matchup, this is remarkably close considering that they played a head-to-head and, Stevens came out on top there. So, it's there's a lot of things that happen at the end of that game that could have gone Mitchell's way. And, we've seen that from Mitchell across the year where, they've had some opportunities. They had one against Roosevelt where, they could have won the game at the end of the game, but they just didn't. So, that's something that Mitchell definitely needs to work on. It's something that, against a team like Stevens, it's a good test for them, considering that, that's a team that's gotten them in the past. So, they're just going to try to show their improvement.
I had a chance to talk to Ryker Kreutzfeldt, the head coach of Mitchell, first-year head coach there, and he said they play better with a chip on their shoulder.
Yeah, it's a weird deal with our guys because I feel like when we feel like we're probably the favored team, we just don't play very well. And when we're the underdog or we have a chip on our shoulder, for whatever reason it might be, we play up to our abilities. We saw that with Roosevelt. O'Gorman, we played decent for most of the game, just got away from us at the end. And then like Brandon Valley, that was a chip on our shoulder game because that was for ESD title, which is the first in a decade for us. So, and we played really well. So I think we feel good. You got to get to the state tournament first, but once we get there, I think, there's anybody can win that thing. Obviously Roosevelt and O'Gorman are favored, but if we can get in there, then we'll see where we go.
So yeah, we'll see if Mitchell can get it done the second time around against Stevens. Stevens, I think one of those teams in the bottom half of this bracket, the road teams, that really feels like they have a shot to get things done. Although they've been up and down too. They've been a team that's inconsistent, but they've shown enough ceiling to get something done. So that's definitely one I'm going to look forward to. Let's look at some of the others. 6 versus 11. Jefferson takes on Pierre, and Pierre's another team with some potential. Jefferson has worked their way up to get a home game in the round of 16. I mean, for a first-year program, first of all, let's just talk about Jefferson. That's a team that is probably exceeded expectations this year.
Yeah, I mean, they got a really, really good core with Taylor Ashley, Caden Year. Griffin Wilde plays some great defense, plays great in transition. I'm really impressed with the passing of Bo Giblin. I feel like he's a player that's not really talked about enough. I mean, their starting 5 is kind of stacked. They got a bunch of really, really good size coming off the bench as well. And I've been a fan of Jefferson all year. Just the way that they play the game. They play really fast. They could shoot on you if you need to, but that's not really their game. They're going to run on you. They're going to get out in transition. Caden Year is going to throw down some nice dunks. But going up against a pure team, with Lincoln Keenholz, who's definitely one of the better players in the state, and has been playing at another level in the past couple of weeks. I mean, that's a tough matchup for them. And, Jefferson dropped a game a couple of weeks ago to Lincoln, which, those teams seemed like they were heading in a similar trajectory, but then Lincoln kind of jumped over them there. Jefferson actually is still the higher seed now, but yeah, I mean, that's an interesting game. It's probably a little bit closer than what you'd expect out of a 6-11, considering some of the 7-10 and, some of the closer matchups don't seem as close as maybe that one.
Yeah, I was just going to say I definitely think the home teams are the favorites. I think the real jumble here is between 3 and 8, really.
Mm-hmm.
So not a lot of crossover between these 7-10, 8-9 games, although, it's playoff basketball. We could see it. And by the way, that 7-10 game is Lincoln versus Brandon Valley. Lincoln has played really well at times this year, and they feel like they've got things going in the right direction heading into March. I think they're definitely a team to watch. And then the 8-9 battle between Aberdeen Central, who, their record almost as good as the 3, 4, 5 seeds, but they got bumped down to an 8 seed because they couldn't get a win down the stretch. They got to play Yankton, and they've got some playoff history between those two teams. So that one could be an interesting game as well. Yankton could really get a signature win if they can go up to Aberdeen and get things done. All right, let's move on to Boys A. Boys A and Boys B are the two that are not at the SODAK 16 yet. They still have to earn some spots there. So we'll talk more about them next week. But right now, they're looking at Friday to earn their spots in the SODAK 16. And there's a couple games I've got my eye on. It's that Region 3A. We've been talking about it the last couple of weeks here. Sioux Falls Christian takes on Del Rapids just like we thought it would be. And Region 3, they've already had one upset. Madison worked their way into the semifinals. This one will be an interesting game. And I hear coaches across the state talk about Sioux Falls Christian, despite their record, they feel like they're a team that could cause some problems.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like I've been saying that for weeks now. It's they're a really, really solid team, and everybody expected them to be a solid team from the beginning of the season, and then they just kind of went through a little bit of a rough stretch, but they're really getting back into stride now. But it's a shame that both of these teams can't make the state tournament. I mean, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of good teams in this region, and this matchup specifically. I mean, you want both of them to come out of it.
And we talk about Sioux Falls Christian just because, they were a state champion team last year. But let me just tell you, Braden Pankonen out of Del Rapids, he really makes things happen for them. They've got a lot of players. Jack Henry has really stepped up for Del Rapids as well. They've got some really good talent on that team. So wouldn't be surprised either way. I just think that's going to be one of the best matchups of this region qualifier round, I guess, if you will. Another one I'm looking forward to is Region 4A. T area, again, they've played themselves a really challenging schedule. You look at their record and you might not realize that they're one of the best teams in Class A, but they got one more to prove against their rival, Lennox.
Yeah, and same thing with T area with a lot of these teams. They got obviously in Kellen Dean, they have a really, really good player at the front of their team, who could take over in a game that you kind of need him to. That's sort of what matters in March. That's sort of what, that's what wins some teams games, just having a closer. So the fact that they have that is, a good sign for them already. But, Lennox is a good team, and, it's another situation where, only one good team is going to make it in, and that's it's going to be a battle.
Those are two I'm definitely looking forward to. Pretty much chalk up until this point for most of Class A in the B brackets and the region brackets. Let's move on to Boys B now, and again we got Friday night to decide who's going to get a spot in that SODAK 16 when they reshuffle and reseed. A couple games that popped out to me. Potter County takes on Fulton area. Potter County, just the 2 seed. They're one of the best teams in the state, but they're the 2 seed because Lower Brule's number 1 in their region. They get Fulton area.
Yeah, and we've talked about Potter County a lot. Obviously, Grant Lukens and Cooper Logan have been, maybe the best duo in Class B right now, outside of DeSmet. But they've been playing really, really well, and I would expect them to continue that going into the state tournament.
Yeah, Fulton has just lost a handful of games. One of those games they lost was to Potter County back on February 10th. That was a home game that they took a 12-point loss to. In Region 4B, an interesting one. Bridgewater Emory has pulled off 2 upsets in their last 3 games, beating Del St. Mary's both times. Maybe they just need to play Del St. Mary's every time because they've been on fire when they play them. But they take on Ethan. And, of course, as you know in football, Bridgewater Emory co-ops with Ethan. Now they play each other in a Region 4B matchup with the SODAK 16 spot on the line. They played back on January 11th. Ethan won that one fairly handily, but a team that's pulled off a couple upsets might be fun to watch.
Yeah, and I saw Bridgewater Emory play at the DW Classic, and I was really impressed with them. I can't quite remember what team that they were playing, but they were playing a top team, and they really stuck with them all game. I mean, they have some really good players on that team, and I think they're that's gonna be a really fun matchup.
That will be just these natural rivalries kind of resurfacing. And speaking of that, there's another natural rivalry between Gregory and Burke in Region 6B. I mean, those two communities neighbor each other. They always have tough games. Burke's only lost 3 games all year. One of those games was to Gregory, who beat him 56-52 back on January 14th. So another natural rivalry. And you've got one of the best players in the state, even though Gregory's young. They got a guy who can go off.
Yeah, Daniel Mitchell is just unbelievable. But Jordan Songer was a player on their team that really impressed me as well. I mean, he's one of the only seniors on their team, and he's really taken a step up this year. Obviously, being sort of the lead ball handler for the team. He's got a really nice pull-up jumper, can get to the basket, can shoot a little bit. He's a really great number 2 behind Daniel Mitchell, who obviously is, in terms of, players in the state, one of the top guys, just as a sophomore. But he's I mean, Gregory's a team that really interests me because they're obviously young and their record kind of shows it a little bit, but then they have wins over winner that makes you kind of see that, wow, this team is legit. So, I'm excited about this Gregory team. And I think that, they're a team that if they make it to the end, if they make it to the state tournament, that, they can make some noise.
Oh yeah. I think that's going to be a lot of fun to check out. Time to move to girls basketball. Let's start in girls AA. They're SODAK 16 with a place at the state tournament on the line. Happens Friday night. And we've been talking about this all year long. These top 5 teams have pretty much been in the top 5 in the rankings all year long. Don't expect much as far as upsets go with those top 5. Huron earns the number 6 spot. They're a team that's knocked off one of those top 5 teams. They get Harrisburg at home. And then I think the fun starts at the 7-10 and the 8-9 matchups, where you've got Lincoln taking on Mitchell. These two teams just played each other, and Mitchell took it to them in the 4th quarter, but Lincoln really feels like a team that's overachieved this year.
Yeah, I mean, when you look down, I mean, it's hard to find a good game in this class, just considering how top heavy the class has been. I do not think that any of those top 5 are going to lose. Just kind of looking at the schedules, I would say, probably the toughest test is RC Central's game against Watertown, because Watertown's a game that a bunch of the Sioux Falls schools have when they see them on the schedule. That's always considered a big game for them, just with how they've been playing this year. But still, I mean, Central's been really good this year, and even as the 5 team at the lower end of that top 5, I don't expect there to really be much movement. But yeah, those 2 games at the bottom, I'm intrigued by.
Yeah, Lincoln takes on Mitchell. Like I said, they just played each other. And I talked to Coach Matt Daly from Lincoln, and he was really impressed that, they pretty much doubled their win total from last year. They've probably achieved higher than they have. They don't have the star talent that they've had in the past, and yet they found a way to get a home game in the SODAK 16. He said that was one of our goals. Here's a little more from Coach Matt Daly.
We're playing good basketball right now. We this group has really surprised me with how well they've rebounded and they've defended for the entirety of the season. And when you can rebound and you can defend, you put yourself in a position to be competitive, night in and night out. And I don't feel like we've peaked yet, just for the fact that I don't feel like it's tough to peak when you're not getting, some of those wins. But I tell you what, it would be nice to peak here on Friday night and kind of hit our stride, by the time we get into that big arena at the state tournament, hopefully.
So yeah, Matt Daly has his team in the right spot. I think at that 7 seed, they've got to be proud of themselves. And it's going to be an interesting matchup because they just lost to Mitchell, like I said, and they're looking forward to kind of regrouping with the game and getting a little revenge there. And then in the 8-9 matchup, always a great matchup, Jefferson. They play Pierre. Pierre's a team that seems like they've improved on every time that they've played later in the season, and their coach Kirk Bebout has done a good job of getting that team going in the right direction. So that will be fun too. Let's move to girls A, where we've got SODAK 16 action coming up tomorrow night. This will be a lot of fun. And let's start off with that first matchup. Not often we take time to talk about the 116 matchup, but that one's interesting, isn't it, Michael?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably the most intriguing 116 matchup. Obviously this is my first year here, but I'd have to, probably guess that it's been the most intriguing one in a while. But yeah, I mean, when the 16 has one of the best players in the state in Belle Sweetlands, how could you not be intrigued by that? I mean, Bella has she has the ability to just take over a game and kind of just demoralize an opponent. So if that happens against Wagner, the 16 can be walking out of the SODAK 16 and go into the state tournament. I mean, Wagner they're obviously battle tested. They're I believe undefeated at this point still.
Just the one loss. Yep.
Okay, just the one loss. So they obviously have gotten through their schedule, well, and there's no reason to doubt them as the 1 seed, but at the same time, it's hard not to think, wow, this game's going to be a lot closer than a lot of 116 matchups usually are.
Yeah, the star power is definitely there. They played each other on opening night, and at that time, Winter was the favorite because they were ranked and Wagner was not. And Wagner went in and got the win. I think it was about a 6 or 7 point win, and that really vaulted them confidence-wise into the rest of the season. Of course, it's a lot different than it was back then. I think it'll be a lot higher scoring. I think it was 41-34. So I think it'll be a higher scoring game this time around. I think Wagner will play with a lot more confidence this time around as well. That 2-15 matchup, West Central, the favorites against Crow Creek, 3-14. Hamlin, despite not being ranked in the top 5, their seed points have earned them a 3 spot, which gives them Belle-Fourche. Belle-Fourche, a team that's been in the state tournament before. That's a team with some confidence. The 4-13 matchup, though, is the next one I want to really dig into. We've got Lakota Tech, just 1 loss on the season. That was an early loss at the LNI when they lost to Red Cloud, and been perfect since. They haven't had a tough schedule, but they've played a couple good teams, including Florence Henry, and got a win there at the Hanson Classic, taking on Flandreau, who was at number 1 most of this season, and in the second half of the season had some tough games. Lost to Corsica Stickney, took a surprise loss to Garrettson, but talent-wise, these two teams very even.
Yeah, I almost did a double take when I saw Flandreau at 13. I mean, considering, all the time that we considered them, maybe the top team in the class, if not one of the top 3. Yeah, I mean, it was pretty shocking to see them that low. And, for Lakota Tech, that's a rough draw as a 4 seed, considering that, they had a really, really good season. They got the seed points to get a good matchup, and then they get matched up with, one of the better teams in that bottom, I guess, in those bottom like 5 or 6 seeds. But yeah, I mean, I think this is going to be a good matchup because, even though Flandreau has, really impressed me this year, so is Dakota Tech. They're extremely versatile. I got to see them at the Hanson Classic. There's not a single player on that team that can't handle the ball. And, with the size they have at the guard position, I mean, I really think this is a team that's, legitimately very good. But, as far as matchups go, I mean, that's a really, really tough draw against Flandre.
Yeah, I say throw out the seeds. It doesn't look like a 4-13 matchup to me. Lakota Tech, Flandre, very, very evenly matched. So that's definitely one we'll be watching. St. Thomas More takes on Vermilion. St. Thomas More, a team that's traditionally kind of just walked into the state tournament this year. They're going to have to earn it. Vermilion's had a couple good wins, and they could pose a problem. That 6-11 matchup, another great one. Sioux Falls Christian takes on Sisseton. Sisseton got a late season win against Florence Henry that opened some eyes. They've played a tough schedule, and they've been right there. I think that's going to be a fun matchup to look at. And then 7-10 is a game that you saw at the Elman Center earlier this year. Dakota Valley took on Mount Vernon Plankinton, and Dakota Valley got the win at that time, rematch time. What do you think of that one?
Yeah, I mean, I was really impressed with both teams there. Obviously, Riley Rosenquist took over towards the end of the game, and was really impressive player to watch. But Emily Fox with Mount Vernon Plankinton, I believe just a sophomore. I mean, that's a really, really good sophomore class, just with all the sophomores that we mentioned so far. I'm in both boys and girls, but they were really impressive, and they kept it close. Dakota Valley did pull away at the end. But I do think these teams are very similar, in terms of the star power that they have. But, Dakota Valley at that time was a top 5 team, and they've sort of fallen out of the top 5 recently. And I haven't really been following, but, I was surprised to see that watching them live. So, maybe something's going on with Dakota Valley a little bit. Maybe they picked up a few losses, but, I don't, not what from what I'm seeing on the schedule. But, yeah, I mean, if anything, these teams are just growing a little bit closer together. But I think it's again, it's just two good teams going up against each other, and this girls' Class A has produced a lot of good matchups.
Yeah, Dakota Valley's had a really tough schedule this year. They took a few L's against some good teams: Sioux Falls Christian, Hamlin, Sisseton, but they've got some good wins against Vermilion and Mount Vernon Plankinton, Viborg Hurley, and they can play. They'll be comfortable playing against good quality competition. So that, to me, is one that I'll definitely be checking out. And the 8-9 matchup, Red Cloud takes on Florence Henry. They have common opponents in Lakota Tech. That's their only common opponent. Red Cloud split against Lakota Tech this year, a win and a loss. Win first game, loss, got beat pretty bad. And then Florence Henry also played against Lakota Tech, and Florence Henry lost that one. So just it's hard to judge off a common opponent sometimes, but it feels like this is going to be a really, really good game. Where Florence Henry's had some really tough competition on the stretch. Haven't gotten a signature win against them, though. They're going to need to get some confidence and get a win against Red Cloud to, feel like they belong at the state tournament. All right, let's talk about Class B girls. We've got Ron Colley, who's walked through the season, has one loss, but really have felt like that number 1 team all season long. They are taking on Bison. DeSmet have steadily climbed up the charts all season long. They're taking on Avon. The 3-14 matchups, one I want to talk about a little bit. We've got Wall, a team that has not been in the top 5, only has 2 losses on the year. A couple of those losses coming to some Class A teams, and they take on Howard, a team that looked really good in the regional game that I saw them play. They had a big shot to take it to overtime and eventually get the win against Coleman Egan to earn their spot in the SODAK 16. Walls had a couple clutch shots earlier this year. I think this one's a really interesting 3-14 matchup.
Yeah, there's been a couple teams like Wall through our Class B this year where they maybe don't show up in the media poll just to kind of admit some of our human error, maybe because we're not familiar as much with their schedules as some of the teams that they're playing. So DeSmet's probably one of them. What they've gotten their due in the past couple of weeks, and White River has sort of like kind of floated around that 4-5 spot. But all these teams are teams that really aren't taking many losses at all. So I mean, this is really the part of the season where we start to see when teams are actually legitimate.
I had a chance to talk to Wall coach John Hess, and had to find out, what do we not know about this team that we need to know?
We got 4 players for sure that any night can lead us in scoring, and they have all year. Probably our 2 seniors is what makes us go. Ava Dinger's more of a scorer than Kiana. And it seems like here late in the season when we needed something done, Ava did it. And, a lot of things with Kiana, she's just steady. She does the little things, what needs to be done. Our Faith win with the big 3/4 court buzzer beater, everybody talks about Ava's hitting the shot, but if you watch the video, Kiana gets the rebound and puts it right in Ava's shot pocket. I mean, everything had to go perfect for that, and our 2 seniors did everything perfect for that. So, but I would say mostly those 2. Ava's sister Nora, she's just a little spark plug. I mean, she gives us a lot too, and then Paige Kerstead kind of rounds things out for us with rebounds and scoring in the paint.
This time of year, I mean, no such thing as an easy game. Tough opponent in Howard coming in. You guys, the only common opponent I saw was Jones County. You both played them very similarly. I'm guessing you're expecting a competitive game.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like you said, this time of year, nothing's a given. They got great bigs and we're kind of an undersized team, but we've been undersized all year and we've seen bigs all year. If we can handle the boards and handle their 2 bigs, it's going to be a lot closer of a game than if we just let those 2 go off.
So yeah, quietly a 2-loss team. They lost to Rapid City Christian earlier this year and lost to White River, but they need a signature win. But I'll tell you what, they feel confident. And Coach John Hess said that they are a confident bunch and they are really excited because they're going to be playing in Kadoka, which is only like a 40-minute drive for them. And they're used to driving a lot further when they have to play a SODAK 16 game. Howard has to make the long trip. So they're feeling like they're going to have some fans in the house and can make something happen. All right, that 4-13 matchup. Corsica Stickney takes on Bridgewater Emory. These 2 faced off in late January. Corsica Stickney won handily, down to a 4 seed. But I'll tell you what, this Corsica Stickney team, they would love to get back on track and get in position to get back to the state tournament.
Yeah, I saw them against Flandre in the Hanson Classic, and I was really, really impressed by them. So I've been an advocate for Corsica Stickney as, one of those top teams, before Roncalli started to pull away a little bit towards the end of the year. But, I still think, even though they fell in the ranking a little bit, I still think the 1-2 in this class is Roncalli Corsica Stickney.
I think so too. And it'd be interesting if we do go chalk, that Roncalli Corsica Stickney matchup would be a semifinal matchup in the state tournament. So they're on course to play each other at some point, I would guess, but we'll see if that actually comes to fruition because we know how this stuff goes in state tournament in March basketball. 5-12 matchup. This is another one to kind of look at. Harriet Selby earlier this year, it kind of been one of those under the radar teams, and then they took a couple losses toward the end of the year, but they've got some talent on this team. It's going to be tough though against a White River team, the defending champs. Malia Estes, 28 points per game, all-state player, 2,000 for her career. I have a tough time believing she's going to let her team lose. The 6-11 matchup, Castlewood takes on Viborg Hurley, and this Castlewood team, another under the radar team. I think they've played some really quality competition, and they get a good game against Viborg Hurley. And Viborg Hurley, again, another team that's really tested themselves this year. But I think this Castlewood team is probably one of those potential surprise teams in this round and maybe even going forward. The 7-10 matchup, Faith takes on Sully Buttes. I really like these Chargers. They've won 12 out of their last 13, a really young team. Their losses this year have come to mostly, ranked teams. Florence Henry, a Class A team, Highmore Herald, Hamlin, and Roncalli. So Sully Buttes has really tested themselves. I think even though they're the 10 seed here, they're probably the favorites in this one.
Yeah, that's two Class A teams in there. So, a Class A team and a team that, probably should still be in Class A with how they're running through Class B. Yeah, I mean, those are some fine losses.
Yeah, so I think the Sully Buttes team is going to make their entrance into the state tournament this year, and I'd watch out for them in the future. This is a team that's going to just get better. The 8-9 matchup, Centerville, just 2 losses on the season. They lost their opener, and then they lost to Corsica Stickney in their conference tournament. But I'll tell you what, they're a pretty decent team, but they've got Aberdeen Christian, another one of those. They feel like a ranked team, but their seed only got them a number 9 spot. So they have to go on the road on this. Well, they both have to go on the road, but it's Aberdeen Christian who's not the favorite, but I think most people believe that Aberdeen Christian might have more talent.
Yeah, Aberdeen Christian's been rising up the ranks in recent weeks, and they picked up some really nice wins in the last couple weeks. So yeah, I mean, I'm really impressed by this Aberdeen Christian team, and to see them in the 9 is somewhat surprising.
It's been a lot of fun. We've got SODAK 16 matchups as early as tomorrow. We've got some more Friday. We've got some more Saturday. We've got even more next Tuesday, and then we'll know everybody who's in the state tournament. And next week we'll come back on Talking Hoops and preview the girls' state tournament, and then we'll mention also the teams that earned a spot in the boys' state tournament. But we'll focus on the girls next week, and then the following week we'll focus on the boys' state tournament. You ready for some high school March basketball, Michael? You got lots on your plate right now, don't you?
Yeah, it's both college and high school basketball season, so it's a lot of things intertwining. But I'm excited. I'm going to get out to some of the SODAK 16 games on Thursday, and then it's a college basketball weekend for me this weekend, but a lot of fun basketball.
Same here. I'm on duty at the Summit League tournament most of the weekend, but I will be following along, with these teams, and can't wait to bring you some more action on Talking Hoops coming up next week. We'll see you then.